Why, hello, everyone. Welcome to The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. For those of you who tweeted at me and guessed it, well done. For the rest of you, try harder next time. Don't worry, the hint is real, though it sounds like I'm not doing a good job at making it up. Because I'm not. They told me to keep this short, so I will. Thanks for listening. If you missed the explanation, this is the beginning of our October scary, spooky movie month with an actual honest-to-God horror movie, which we don't usually do. However, the reason we're doing it now, this time a week early, is so that next week we can do a special in-theaters kind of movie, which we don't do very often, but we decided we wanted to do this one. So, prepare for that. If you're in the Metro Atlanta area, October 5th, Cineprov is performing. I'm not in this particular one, but the movie promises to be truly atrocious, so enjoy. Additionally, keep an eye out for some Myopia news. We are available where we've always been available, like Twitter and Facebook. But participate in some discussions on the Facebook page and rate and review us on iTunes and Stitcher. And, well, you know what? Thanks.
The Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast delivers the latest sci-fi news plus movie and TV reviews with brilliant and insightful commentary. If you haven't listened to the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast before, you will listen to the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast now.
What, you think you're some kind of Jedi waving your hand around like that?
Watto, I'm telling everyone to listen to the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast.
No, they won't.
Yes, they will, including you.
No, they won't. I'm a Toydarian. Mind tricks don't work on me. Only money.
Okay, I don't have money, but please listen to the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast. Sci-fi, from a certain point of view.
Welcome to Myopia Defending Childhood. This week, we're talking John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982. And I had a joke, but it's gone. Oh, the alien movie that lost to E.T. I'm Nic Hoffmann, editor-in-chief of Dude Letter and, host of Myopia Defender Childhood. And this week on panel, we have
Matthew W. Quinn, webmaster of The World According to Quinn.
Yeah, that was charismatic this time.
Matt, the other Matt. Perini.
I'm almost sure your mic's on, but you're so quiet.
I am quiet. Do you want me to get close to my mic or just talk louder?
Either. I mean...
Both?
Both? One or the other? Neither?
I think we all said
Just make
both.
up your mind.
And...
Abbey Normal.
One of the two of you might have been a DJ at one point.
She was.
Are you sure your microphone is turned
on?
Now it's
plugged
on.
in. It was on. Switch was up.
Now you're much louder, so we're good now. Okay.
You may want to check this in the future then, because the switch was already up. I checked it.
Maybe it's one of these, like, right there, if it's not all the way.
Maybe.
All the way. Anyway, regardless. So this week we talked John Carpenter's The Thing, which is an alien movie from 1982. Who wants to give me the summary?
Okay, so I'll do it. The movie
Don't sound too excited about it.
The movie starts out with a questionably animated flying saucer flying into the world, and it's heading for Antarctica. Cut to the present day, being 1982. A helicopter is chasing a dog across the snow plain, and there's a heavily bearded crazy man shooting at it with a rifle. And they arrive at American camp, and because he's in such a state, he doesn't remember he should be speaking English or whatever,
Or doesn't know English.
Or only speaks Norwegian.
Well, that is possible. I would assume a scientist would speak.
He's a Norse.
And I'm assuming, well, whatever. The point is, in actually Norwegian, he's saying it's not a dog, it's a thing, but pity they can't understand him. And he's running around with a gun shooting around, so they shoot him. Well, they have very good reason to want to kill that dog, it turns out, because that dog is not a dog. It's a shape-shifting alien critter. And so they go when they find out, they go back. So they send a delegation to the Norwegian camp to find it in ruins, and a melted flesh critter there. And meanwhile, the dog has begun exploring the camp and mapping all out, and then one by one assimilating them. And so now we have everyone's getting paranoid because no one knows who's human anymore.
Good. Okay.
Well, you imagine the guy instead of his chest open and biting his hands off.
We don't need to go there. We're all set. I don't need any more Colin jokes.
So at this point, we're kind of, I guess, into the thick of it. This movie's great.
As someone who had never seen this movie before, this movie was great.
And it's worth noting, does not like horror movies
Yeah,
at
not
all.
a big horror fan. But
I'm pretty sure you figured out that the dog, something was weird about the dog when I wasn't reacting to someone shooting at a dog.
I mean, it was kind of like it wasn't really like veiled in mystery that there was something off about the dog. So
But
that is the creepiest dog ever. Turns out it's actually a wolf dog, which might explain why it was acting differently than a pet dog would.
And apparently its name is Jed. That's not a joke. That's its actual name.
IMDb trivia.
Yep.
It's named after our 47th president.
Get Jed the dog Oscar, because that dog did a really good job of being creepy and weird.
So I was very confused by the initial opening scene of him shooting the dog, and you didn't see, like, you saw him shooting, but there was no like, you know, powder from the snow, from bullets hitting the snow or anything. And I was like, is this guy a really bad shot? But was he actually hitting the dog the whole time then?
See, like that's cool, because then it very clearly hits not Ron Howard, right? Right, and his leg blows out. And I think that's what it's supposed to be, in that you can't kill these things, right? Because he just keeps hitting the dog, because the dog has like wounds later. Like, they do some serious dog makeup. But like, man.
Well, you have to burn the thing.
Yeah, the helicopter was full of grenades, so the strategy might have been shoot it enough to slow it down, then torch it.
Well, I was like, are the effects really bad? Like, could they not add little like pew pew of like snow getting hit, because he's missing so horribly? But I guess he wasn't. Like,
it was such a wide shot too. It was probably hard to actually see the snow effects.
Maybe I missed it.
I don't know. A lot of the effects and the way the scenes were shot were so intentional that I would almost think that it would be him hitting the dog.
Well, and to your point, like, this is some of the best practical effects like ever. And considering that this is between Alien and Aliens, this is some cool alien effects.
Yes.
The people's heads turning into spiders and shit. I don't know. I think we should talk. I mean, because Matt did an interesting job on the thing, but and the plot of the summary. I have to use actual nouns this time, because the word thing is bandied about a lot nowadays. But so we have our main character, Kurt
Snake
Russell.
Plissken.
Snake Plissken.
Escape from Antarctica.
Do they ever actually refer to the alien as the thing in the movie?
Yeah,
The Norwegian guy
repeatedly.
does.
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
McCready does.
McCready does. But it's also it's lazy. It's not. It's because Wilford Brimley.
Oh, Wilford.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, the Norwegian guy, they actually translate it as "it's not a dog, it's a thing."
Well done, Abbey.
I was just going to say it's it or the thing.
I
Didn't
liked
have
the
anything.
Norwegian guy's goggles. I thought those were pretty spiffy.
They
Yeah.
were.
The little like slit goggles. I don't know if those are like standard issue scientist goggles.
Those
They're
are
for
old-timey
the snow.
sunglasses.
Snow goggles.
No,
I've seen Wild Wild West. They're kind of both. It's the metric system. Makes things look nerdier.
Yeah.
I mean, and my favorite is that the guy shows up like, you know, I don't know, someone out of Alabama, you know. But like, he shows up with a helicopter and a bunch of grenades and accidentally blows up his own helicopter when he drops the
Oh yeah,
grenade.
that was comical. Yeah, that was good.
We've all been there.
and the reaction is, oh yeah, Antarctica makes people crazy.
Yeah, it's snow madness.
Snow mad.
It's something out of like a Ren and Stimpy bit, as though he has like a voice behind him just saying space madness. Like, it's great. I like it. But then we get into this kind of, well, I mean, it's Aliens is an apt comparison, because it's a chamber drama. You know, you have a bunch of people in a trapped place as a storm's coming in, and they're just not sure what this is. The only one who kind of has an idea is Wilford Brimley, who's like, look, according to this computer playing something,
It's diabetes.
it's thank
They
you.
were great. I liked all the statistics and projections.
That computer is super smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
27,000 hours exactly.
It's diabetes that'll kill you and eat you.
And it takes, like you said, 2700.
Yeah.
It's 3 years on the
yeah.
nose or whatever it is. And the idea that he has all the variables in place.
Yes.
If it gets to civilization, it'll take 3 years to take over the planet.
God damn it, I kill you.
God damn it. God damn it. And he's just as fat and diabetic as possible. Also, apparently everyone knows how to do an autopsy. So,
There were like 3 autopsy killers.
That was one of my favorite little comedic bits. They find that like huge mass of limbs. It's like, all right, bring it in for an autopsy. What the hell are you going to do an autopsy on
yeah,
that thing
melty
for?
man melted.
Yeah.
I mean, let's get into this. The Norwegians, the Scandinavian team, something's askew because apparently they've gone nut fuck.
Yep.
That's
the technical term,
It
nut
is.
fuck.
Kurt Russell shows up. He decides to go to the Norwegian base. Reluctantly.
Very reluctantly. Really hammering home the dangers of Antarctic weather.
I like the JMB everywhere, kind of.
Oh, I was just wondering how he could still fly a helicopter when he clearly was smuggling at least 3 bottles of J&B in his stomach at all
Let's
times.
just say he was never sauced in this movie. He was shooting straight the whole
Yeah.
time.
He has an alcohol tolerance of a man god.
Well, I mean, and to be fair, what else are you going to do out there? That's kind of the point I got. Like, because the opening sequence, they're not talking to each other. They're just all kind of drinking.
And that was his shtick. Like, other people were doing stuff. He was drinking.
He was a pilot. What was he going to do?
I don't
Pilot
know.
things?
Well, I mean, and to your point, he's the only one who has no job when the blizzard comes in because you can't. That's the one thing you can't do. Everyone else can keep doing science or whatever. But
talk on radios.
Or autopsies.
I'm just a senator from Mississippi, and I think this disproves global warming.
Well, hi, I'm Senator Sessions. How are you?
Right?
The police state Keebler elf.
But police state Keebler elf was funny. You're welcome. They get to Scandinavian base 1, and there's this nothing. Like, it's all frozen out. I think it's one of the few
Burned down.
Yeah.
burned down and frozen solid. It's actually a really kind of cool scene. It's always the trick in like a Jason movie, for example, to make the camp feel desolate. So it's a lot of woods. You get to the edge of the cabins and there's nothing, right? Michael Myers, you have the neighborhood block, and then you're running through empty houses like that. That's the empty the empty scientific base is really terrifying. Like, it really it makes more sense than Aliens. Like,
I love how it's a movie that has its own prequel in it. I mean, in 10 minutes, you get to find out exactly what the thing is and what it can do.
Yeah, you can tell things went down because he axes embedded in doors. There's been explosions everywhere. There's a dead thing sitting there, and then one dude, I think it's something you point out, Nick. He cut his own throat, cut his own wrist, and then sat there in the chair, and all the blood froze in blood icicles.
Yeah.
that is it's bone chilling. And then when you get outside, when they get outside, they get into the autopsy room, because apparently that's something that scientific stations in Antarctica just have. There's like this ice sarcophagus, and they've done an autopsy on something that they don't recognize that makes them nauseous, and they run outside, and then they see this melty man.
Yep.
And when we get to Cthulhu and Friends, that's when we have the next scene, which is they bring back these 2 things. One is an alien, and one is this half melty man thing, which is...
When you see a melty man, why wouldn't you bring it back home?
Right?
If you're cold, melty man is cold. Bring him inside.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if it was the South, they just toured around on a tour bus and charged 2 bits a gander. Like,
Let's
Or eat
clarify
it.
slightly. It has about 6 arms, 2 heads, and multiple limbs, and the autopsy reveals that it has normal organs.
yeah. Well, and as I think Daniel made this joke, but the head that we see is like melted, so it looks like both the comedy and tragedy, like mask faces. And this is where we bring up that the prosthetics here are incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Like
I
God, I
miss
hate
practical
CGI.
effects. I miss practical
Something
effects.
tells me you probably didn't like the 2011 prequel.
Did you see it?
I did.
I've never seen it.
It's the events of the Norwegian camp.
Well, we already saw that in this movie, and it took all of 10 minutes. That's pointless.
Was it starring the Scandinavian swim team? then I didn't need to see it.
No,
Was it
they
good?
did.
Is
There's
the-
an American scientist who's pretty, but
just
no
pic-
Scandinavian swim teams.
I'm just picturing Ingmar Bergman directing The Thing and just how desolate that would be.
Death is only the beginning.
I am not human, and neither are you.
That was a lot of Werner Herzog in both of ours.
Yeah.
That's a shame. I played the 2003 video game, The Thing, which was kind of fun. But again, it's all computer graphics, so you can't do better than a Melty Man. I will say, at this point, things go crazy, because there are some people who are doing the autopsy, including Wilford Brimley, who still looks as old as he does today. He apparently was a bodyguard
For
back
Howard
in the day.
Hughes.
For Howard Hughes, crazy Howard Hughes, the guy who peed in jars and never cut his nails. And other guy, the guy who looks like Ron Howard, they're doing autopsies.
Oh.
Everyone else is playing cards,
Where's
and the
Keith?
dog is going around biting people, and no one seems suspicious.
Well, the dog's just sort of there walking around, and then they pen him up with the rest of the dogs, and that's when the Thing dog starts going crazy.
But he does bite someone under the table.
Yeah,
that's
you
the first
see-
one to turn.
And you also see like the silhouette of a shadow and the dog going.
yeah, the
around
dog
and
goes into the room with him, and that's when I think he might have been the first to go.
That was the setup for Clerk. That was why everybody, like, they were creating the suspicion both with the audience and with everyone else that Clark had been turned. Meanwhile, Clark is just like, I like dogs.
So it was.
The dogs are good.
Oh, Clark wasn't. Yeah, Clark
Yeah.
was not actually turned. Forgot that. So
Yep.
that shows how sneaky that little thing is. That it tries to frame someone even that early in the game.
Well, and it's also that I think dogs just like pets, even if they're alien dogs.
This is true.
12 out of 10.
You have
good
to
dog.
become the thing that you're imitating.
Well, I think the whole thing of The Thing, Jesus Christ, I just said The Thing a lot there.
We need more nouns.
The dog thing, and I think the whole purpose of the organism thing itself is it doesn't just copy your genetic material, it copies your memories so that you don't even know when you've been turned into the alien.
That was an excellent point, because that was part of the main terror of this movie was when they finally come up with a test, everyone who tests human is visibly relieved.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't know if they're the alien.
Yeah. Well, and to point, it's kind of the structure of it is neat, because it's kind of it's a monster movie, right? But the structure of it is almost like like a Victorian era like mystery novel. Like one of us is a killer. It's Death on the Nile or Death on the Orient Express. Like all of us could have committed this crime, but we don't know who, and they don't know either. Which is neat.
Fanfic prequel: Hercule Poirot versus The Thing.
Okay, two things. First, it's Poirot.
And he's Belgian.
Second, and this is
Poor.
a complete shock in the dark, but I'm mostly looking at you, Matt. Has anybody ever either read the story this is based on or seen the original movie from the 50s?
I read about it in those orange children's horror novel books my elementary school had, the Crestwood Monster series, and so it has like pictures of the Thing from Another World as illustrations. I have not read the original story. Who goes there? I do know about it.
I was just seeing how I was just.
So
gonna
the
see
answer
how it
was
stacked
no.
up. I just want
Well,
to see
yes,
if
but it's
anybody
a little
knew
more
how it stacked
complicated
up.
than no. And the Barlow's Guide to Extraterrestrials has like an artist illustration of the critter from Who Goes There.
Who is the critter from Who Goes There? I
The
mean,
story is called Who Goes There.
no, I mean like, the whole.
This is not a productive area of discussion.
No, like what I mean is.
What thing you guys talking about?
the dog thing.
What I mean exactly
Third
is,
base.
I thought the whole thing about this creature was that it was like a microscopic parasite that slowly
Yeah.
took you over.
Didn't
so
you
what
see
would
the 80s
this
graphics?
creature look like?
It's like halfway transforming from a blue skinned, 3 red-eyed creature into a dog. So it's like a big vaguely humanoid alien head on the body of a dog, and one of the dog's limbs is like tentacled or clawed or something. It's the way it's not supposed to be.
So it's like a drunk animorph then? Is that pretty much what we're talking about?
Kinda, yeah. That's good.
So, to point, Daniel and I were talking after the movie. What's neat about this movie is the alien that they discovered, the biggest, most impressive, incredible discovery of the last 100 years. Like, the Norwegians found an alien.
Yeah.
Isn't even the thing that's killing them, because it's a parasite that affected that alien, which caused it to crash. So they discover the spaceship, they discover the alien, they blast it open, they find a corpse, they're like, this is amazing, and it's not even what kills them all, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of neat, and which means, as we learned from the CGI Pac-Man that we saw on Wilford Brimley's TV screen, it's just spreading. Like it's a little protozoan
So
thing.
I have a question for you.
As a scholar, I would love to answer.
So you said, like, it didn't even, like, the alien came here because it was affected by the thing, quote unquote.
Right.
So, I mean, when the alien then in turn infected Wilford Brimley, how did the alien then know how to make advanced spacecrafts and shit like that?
That's a good point.
Does it remember everything it's ever imitated?
I doubt it.
That would be my guess.
If it had, well, they're in the.
But would the pilot of the alien would have advanced knowledge on how to build his spaceship?
Yeah, that's a good point. An F-16 pilot is not going to build an F-16.
Well, the only thing we know is that it crashed here 100,000 years ago, which is part of what makes it a good movie. Is we don't know anything about how this works.
Yeah.
So it could very well be a hive mind or something that just retains memories, and that's how it can imitate things so well.
Well, I mean, and to your point, that's the weirdest part of the movie when they discover like Wilford Brimley has been taking apart the helicopter somehow because he's been locked in a room somehow to then make a spaceship, kinda.
How did he have enough time to dig that tunnel? Wasn't it like 2 days?
You saw how big the thing was at the end.
It is also Wilford Brimley. I believe he could have done it on his own anyway.
Snake Plissken is immortal in this
You
movie.
get 16 tons. What do you get, goddammit?
So once we get there, I'm curious about people's thoughts on the end of the movie. Like, we're not there yet, and I know we're not there yet, but
well, maybe we could hold that thought.
I'm holding it. That's why
Hold it as long as you can.
I'm holding it until the end, which is the appropriate time to bring up the end of the movie.
Good. Thank you, Matt. But yeah, so essentially at this point we're developing this weird kind of chamber drama because apparently it just spreads. Wilford Brimley wasn't bitten. I got the feeling he got it because the autopsy. He just got the blood on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the theories I'd read about was it infected him pretty early on. It was slowly turning him. So the stuff he was doing at first was for the protection of the humans, destroy everything so the thing can't spread. And then as the thing started corrupting him more and more, it was do things so the thing can freeze and wait for a better day.
Well, that's the other thing. That works well. I don't think we ever find out how it chooses a host and how it takes people over, which that makes sense that it would spread like a virus, but at the same time it could have been
Did no one
anything.
else watch the 80s graphics? The cells take over the other cells. All it takes is one cell.
They did show that part.
I'm sorry, I was just so lost in the 80s graphics going tubular, and I just stopped paying attention.
Reaganomics.
Well, they got the little cells infecting other cells. Then once you get massive, it's big enough, it just start eating people.
What else did TV tropes tell us, Matt?
It's worth noting that my greatest phobia is parasites, basically.
Yeah.
So the fact that I love this movie is really it's in its favor because a lot of this movie is the psychological terror of no one knowing who's the thing and the great practical effects, which are just enjoyable to watch, to the point that even if you're remotely scared in various parts, it's still a fun movie.
Yeah.
Now, I'll ask Abbey, what was the scariest scene for you?
I think definitely the scene that I mentioned before where they're doing the test and you're watching everybody's face as they're trying to figure out whether or not they're the alien and just relieved when they're not. And even then, that's broken up with them yelling at each other about being tied up.
It is the most helpless scene because when the dog turns, so the wolf dog, looks like a husky to me, gets put in the pen with the other dogs. All of a sudden it freaks out and turns into this giant spider monster mound thing,
and they flamethrower it to death, and after it kills all the other dogs.
What a convenient weapon to have on hand.
I imagine they have it for real reasons.
Oh, you know what I mean? It's Antarctica. They have to de-ice and stuff.
They have to de-ice
exactly.
everything, so I bet you it's what they use to de-ice the helicopter.
It's also worth noting that it didn't kill all the dogs. Wilford Brimley had to kill some of the dogs, and
He did it for real.
It dissolved one of the dogs. It definitely sprayed some acid.
Well,
on
it sprayed one with acid and burned it real bad. You can hear it like whimpering, and the other one was eating it while it was still alive. Like it wrapped it in tentacles. and was
Dogs didn't
chewing
have
on
a
it.
good evening. It was a bad time to be a dog.
Yeah, so if you're a dog person, this may not be a movie for you.
And Chuck tried, or whatever his name was.
I think it was Chuck.
I think it was Chuck. Tried to stop them, which just added to everyone thinking that Chuck was taken over.
Well, and I mean, it's neat because it's also just an abandoned base, and so You have the guy who's like, hey, can you bring the flamethrower? Which is a thing you say sometimes.
Now, we've talked a lot about the dog so far and how creepy and great that scene is, but what about the first human we see that's the thing with the not Ron Howard guy with the deformed hands screaming like he's a body snatcher?
Well, I mean, and he like kind of turns into almost like a joke of a gray alien, like his fingers grow all long and his mouth elongates and his head starts to change. Like, it's quite a terrifying scene, man. And that's when they realized it's among them, that it wasn't just like a dog shapeshifter. It's that this thing could turn into anything. We're all fucked.
The leader even kind of loses it a bit because he's like, we're friends. We're friends. I've known him for 10 years.
And he never once told me he was an alien.
Yeah.
You'd tell me if you were an alien, right, Abbey?
I'm now reminded of that episode of Rick and Morty where it's the alien parasite that makes you think it's been your friend your whole life.
Mr. Poopy Butthole.
Yeah.
I'm sorry we did.
Is this dying? Is this what dying feels like? Ooh.
I'm so sorry we didn't have any bad memories together.
Oh man, Sarah Chalke's character.
Yeah, cut to some cookout and there's all those scientists and this giant tentacle monster flipping burgers.
Oh, like, what was it, Bacon Samurai, or what was it?
I don't even remember half of those fake characters.
I remember Mr. Tinkles. No, not Mr. Tinkles, just Tinkles. Just Tinkles.
And the Mr. Belvedere. Rick and Morty's... Actually, by the time this comes out, Rick and Morty's back, so
awesome.
It was good so far.
You know they're going to do a Thing parody at one point.
They kind of
already did, I guess.
Well, I mean, to be fair, half of the X-Files is kind of this. Like the alien, like the virus, the black oil.
There is one where they're in Antarctica and there is a disease and they don't know if they're infected.
Is that the brain worm?
That's the movie.
Maybe. No, there's an episode.
No, there's an episode where it's literally a chamber drama. There's like a guy that's affected. They've flown out. Then the pilot dies.
It's like a rage virus or something.
Yeah, and it causes people to go completely nuts and start...
Oh, yeah, that one. I remember. And they borrowed the whole scenes of them walking through the base and everything's just wrecked to hell.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally almost shot for shot. It's well done. I love this. We can go from here wherever you want. We've already been talking almost half an hour.
I'd like to talk about the what was it? The scene where they all think MacReady is the Thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And they won't let him in. And Keith David in particular. Have we mentioned he's in this movie?
Yeah. The cast of this is actually kind of an incredible bit of like where they were, because Kurt Russell, of course, is the biggest guy. Mm-hmm. And we alluded to this already. This opened, I think, the weekend after E.T. and the same weekend as Blade Runner. And E.T. beat both of them.
Yeah. No, and this got shitty reviews when it was first reviewed. I mean, Roger Ebert, I think, gave it 2 stars. And for a while, it was like, it got like the same reviews that a Saw sequel would get. It was just gore for the sake of gore. But anyway, I just really like the scenes where they're finding MacReady's torn clothes and think he's turned. And then there's that bit where he manages to break back into the base and threatens to blow everyone up. And considering how the movie's set up, you're not sure what he is.
It's worth noting that the Thing uses this ploy twice. Once to get Fuchs, and then to get the Childs, whoever goes out with him to his old shack, which was a great setup because he said, oh yeah, we have to go to my old shack. And Childs, or whoever, is like, why? And he's like, because when I left last night, I turned the lights off, and it pans and the light is on, which is a great moment.
It is.
Well, and the question as to who is aware of what is kind of neat too, because like the power goes out at the base because Wilford Brimley's character, Dr. Blair, knows that it's going to destroy the Earth, kind of. And the fact that they lock him up, we don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because of course at the end we find out he's part of the Thing. But at the same time, he's also kind of trying to destroy himself and destroy the base, because we first see him going completely nuts and like throwing axes and trying to stop people from getting to him, because he really is threatening to destroy everything.
I'll kill you.
And I don't know, it's neat in that free will is eventually taken away from all these characters, but when they have it, they don't really know what to do. I mean, the guy in charge of the base, Bennings, is that right? Look at the old guy who's in charge. No, Gary, who I thought looked a lot like the guy who's stealing his bodily fluids from Dr. Strangelove, is losing control, and he's freaking out.
I actually checked the Tribune to see whether or not that was him, and apparently it wasn't, because at the same time he was in 9 to 5.
It's also worth noting the moment that he steps down is when he has to point a gun at his one of his subordinates.
Yeah.
And he knows that he's just scared, and then he turns it on all of them because he's also scared, and then he looks at himself and puts the gun down and puts McCready in charge because McCready is the only one that just has flat affect through all of this.
McCready is also the most fantastic functioning alcoholic character we've ever seen, at least so far, because he doesn't react to anything.
Nope.
He's not paying attention, and apparently has been up for almost 48 hours by the end of the movie. He's just
I'm
lost
a real
it.
light sleeper. Quote from McCready there.
And he has this flamethrower, and he's just like half dozing off and just pointing a flamethrower.
Has anybody mentioned that he's introduced by pouring whiskey into a computer because it beats him at chess?
Yeah, that's foreshadowing.
Oh, I laughed so hard. Yeah, he's playing chess on an old Commodore 64 or something.
Chess wizard.
Oh, yeah.
It was a dedicated chess PC. It was a chess wizard.
And I just love the idea that they had to get a grant application, and he listed as an expense a chess computer to not go crazy. And he just
Nomad.
So my only issue towards the end of this movie, they still don't learn that they have to stay together. And I understand you have to move the plot along, and like people have to get separated so people can get caught out, but like they already have the realization, like McCready says, we have to stay together. Like you're not leaving my sights. And then in the last climactic scene, they all split apart. It's like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Come on.
It's also worth noting that the alien like upgrades his assimilation technique and just kind of burrows into skin at that point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point, it made me want a scene like from Aliens where there's like a standoff scene between everyone left and some sort of monsterman.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that what the blood test scene is? It's a standoff with whoever's left.
Well, it is, but we only get the monster for like 4 seconds. Like we don't get like the xenomorph just kind of coming in and like as an army against an army.
It was initially confusing that they wouldn't see the spider head, but then there was a great shot set up where it was out of focus in the background, and there were a few shots set up like that where they were just genius. But we were like, did they not see it? He's like pulling himself by his tongue? What?
I'll be honest, I kind of laughed super hard at that moment because it was filmed like a Looney Tunes scene where it's like hiding under the table and then it tries to make a break for it and you just hear it scurry, 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 and it's just behind them like sneaking off.
I still like that scene just because I love the effects behind it, because I knew in 1982 it took a hell of a lot to make that convincing.
Well, and it didn't look like a Ray Harryhausen where it's like clearly fighting on a green screen against a clay guy.
Yeah.
It was like you said, it was in the soft focus in the middle distance, and then they hear it scurrying and they all kind of slowly turn and they see the upside down face man.
Yeah.
It's pretty damn great.
Because it grew itself legs and eyes out of a head. It's like a head spider with
Kind of.
crab eyes.
Yeah, the crab. I was about to say crab eyes. They kind of have stalks and all.
Oh, here's a real deep cut. Does anybody remember the movie Naked Lunch?
I do know the movie. Naked.
Aware
remember
of
that?
it, haven't read it, seen it.
Do you remember that monologue about the talking asshole with the crab eyes?
Yes,
No.
I do.
I'm just saying. This is a literary movie. It's meant for smart people.
I have Naked Lunch on my bookshelf. That's a movie. It's a book that happened.
I read it, and
Couldn't tell you anything about it.
he needed rehab. That's what William S. Burroughs needed. He needed rehab.
He needed an editor. So at the end of this movie, those who will be turned into things have turned into things, and Kurt Russell and I'm going to get it wrong. Who's the last guy?
Oh,
Childs.
Keith David?
Keith David. Thank you.
Character's name's Childs.
Yeah.
Well, Keith David is just Keith David. He's a presence.
Wait. Before that, they're running through tunnels that they did build beforehand. It's not like the tunnel that was somehow dug in 2 days. And the thing is trying to lower the temperature of the entire camp so they can just go back to sleep. And they're like, well, let's heat things up a bit, and decide to blow up everything. They're literally tossing dynamite and flares everywhere they can. And then they get to the bottom and just continue.
And whiskey.
Things that were unlimited in this movie. Whiskey, dynamite, and flares. And
AKA my weekend.
for some reason, instead of just like tossing it everywhere and hoping that it'll all blow up, they're going to wire it up. So then they split up into 3 areas and go and try to actually line this up. And eventually Snake Plissken is just like, hey guys. And then the thing comes from the floor. It is now a large organism that has been growing the entire time. And then he's like, oh, okay. And just sets off one dynamite, which sets off the rest of the dynamite, which sets off everything in the camp, and there's this huge explosion, and then Snake Plissken is just okay at like a safe distance in the little...
Yeah.
Well, I think they'd already resolved at that point that nobody was making it out alive.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Snake Plissken teleporting to a safe distance in a shelter.
That's what I was talking about. So is that a dream sequence? Is he a thing? Are they both things?
I think you're getting a little...
No, I don't think you're...
Am I allowed to invoke the video game?
I mean...
Sure. I mean, if it has relevant material.
In the video game, I think the idea was that Childs was a thing and McCready survived.
There's no way he survived.
Well, some special forces guys come along later and find the ruins of the camp. Like,
How the hell would the special forces know?
Maybe those transmissions they thought didn't get out were getting out.
He still shouldn't have survived the dynamite explosion that he started when the giant thing was attacking him. And then it ends up with McCready and Childs in the shelter looking at each other going, "Are you the thing?" And then the movie ends, which is a great ending. I don't argue it. But he still was somehow immortal.
Oh no, you're right. I mean, it's almost as though John Carpenter forgot what movie he was making midway through, because I mean, John Carpenter's a horror guy. You know, he made Halloween, and he's made The Escape from L.A. and Escape from New York.
Well, remember in Halloween how the kids were all watching the original Thing from Another World as Mike Myers was stalking them?
Well, I mean, my thought is he needed to have the last guy and he had to have the two people who survive. And you're right. I wonder if there wasn't a cut where Snake sacrifices himself, and then they're like, "Oh no, we need him to survive till the end of the movie."
There needs to be something in the end of the movie.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but I heard this one theory that the whole point behind the movie, behind that end scene, was Snake was tricking Keith David into drinking gasoline from a Molotov cocktail instead of from a whiskey bottle.
I think the point is just you don't know if it's dead, and there's no way to make sure it's dead.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like the thing, and well, I like the thing
I actually like that theory. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
And that's why he's chuckling, because Keith David drank from it, but Kurt Russell specifically said, "No, that's not what I was doing."
Well, I mean, to you, I was gonna say, like, I like the thing as this monster that we just don't know if it's dead or not. It's on too small of a level, because if you had an Antarctic base, come spring, you would check it out one way or another, and they're just hoping that the body is destroyed enough that it's dead too, but we just don't know.
Or it's frozen for another 100,000 years.
But we don't know. That's just it. Yeah. Like it. If it is a thing that thinks.
I also liked how Radio Man said like he hadn't been able to contact anyone for weeks.
Yeah.
Which like was definitely out of the ordinary. So like, what's to say the rest of the Antarctic bases aren't also fucked?
Yeah.
Maybe they're all just snowmad.
Maybe they're all snowmad.
Has anybody seen Day of the Dead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
it reminded me a lot of that drunken Irishman who was running the radio the entire time and said, "I can't contact anybody who's in a 1,000-mile radius of this underground cave."
I mean, to your point, we also don't know if it hasn't already taken over the world.
Yeah.
They literally could be the last people left, and we don't know.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's just it.
Now that's interesting.
Well, I mean, that's what they said. We haven't contacted anyone, and then the storm comes in. We don't know. I also kind of want his, like, ripped up denim, like, biker jacket. But
Yes.
I don't know. I think it was a cool movie because, to me, nothing is scarier than a chamber drama. Anyway, it seems closed off, and they do a really good job of making them feel isolated. And the idea that they took the snowcats out to visit the other base, you can literally see the storm closing in on them.
Yeah.
Like, and when it gets dark, we never see the light again.
But I did like that, like, the shots weren't claustrophobic. Like, it was still, like, I would say shot like an action movie.
Yeah.
Like,
the desolation comes from the fact that they can't contact outside, but it's like a space movie. Like, you could go, there's just nowhere to go.
You compared it to like a John Wayne Western as we were watching it. It was all about there's trouble in the next town over, and it was shot that way too. Like Howard Hawks could have filmed this movie the same way he did the original one in the 50s.
Well, I mean, the Night of the Living Dead, where you could leave the house, but you just don't know what that brings. You just
R.I.P. Mr. Romero. I'm sorry, I had to throw that out there. Before we get to the final thoughts, can we talk about the ending?
Please,
and whether or not...
let's go into it. Matt, you wanted to bring up the ending.
I mean, the extent of what I wanted to bring up has already been partially discussed, but that was my real question. Like, has it been revealed as to what his true intentions were with the ending of the movie? Because I really thought, like, there's no way this is a plausible ending. Snake Plissken's dead. The other guy is probably dead because he followed into where Wilford Brimley was. Like, There's no plausible way these two characters are both still alive and made it out of a large explosion. Like,
I will give that a large enough explosion would lead Childs back to camp. In Antarctica,
but he didn't have time to like fully
fire.
wander, and I don't know.
Oh no, I don't disagree, and we lose time. Like that's the other thing. Like it does feel like we're going. They film it like they're going crazy. Like they haven't seen the sun in a while.
That's why I thought like dream sequence or like.
That he really did fall asleep, like because the scene we've talked about a little bit where we think there's one of them among us, we don't know who it is, so Kurt Russell has tied everyone down with the one person he thinks is okay, and they take out a scalpel and cut up people's thumbs, which really is visceral.
Oh, that was painful to watch.
And then they heat up a piece of copper wire to see if the blood reacts, not knowing it will, but then it does, and it freaks the hell out of me.
His theory being that because it's cells doing this, that if one part of it is harmed, the other part will react to protect it. I don't know why that wouldn't make the giant thing underneath the whole camp try to protect it, but I'll go with them enough for like if you see your cells being attacked and you're a bunch of cells.
Made for a cool scene.
It did.
I think the idea is that each cell even is independent. So its own life form. So not that the giant thing and the person things and the severed head on spider leg things are all one entity combined, but there's billions of them.
They're all a bunch of different little things.
We're all things.
Yeah, I think Matt's point was it's smarter than that. So it can't stop the small bit from protecting the smaller bit, but the big thing can still hide. Or other Matt, sorry. When we were watching the movie, this was a discussion.
I just know that a lot of people have argued about the ending, like whether or not Childs is the thing and is about to kill Snake, or whether they're neither the thing and they're both just about to freeze to death. But I don't think it really matters. It's like asking whether Deckard really is a replicant at the end of Blade Runner, or whether at the end of Inception, if
the top's gonna fall.
Yeah, if Leo was dreaming or actually awake. It's just there to introduce that debate among people.
If he was really ever going through dreams at all, or if he just took a nap at the beginning of the movie.
Exactly. I mean, it's just meant to spark a debate, and it doesn't really have an answer, which I think actually works to its strength.
I liked it. I mean, it left me wanting to know what it was, which is good.
Well, I mean, it's unusual for a horror movie, because horror movies are usually kind of moralistic, kind of Christian dramas where the people who had sex have to die, right? And so the idea that we just don't know if the thing is alive or dead, it's scarier, right? It makes it so it's not a moral thing. It just makes it that people have to die, right?
It isn't a moral thing. Yeah.
Right. No, the Jesus thing. That thing he did.
That thing you do.
I'm trying to imagine mechanics of crucifying a thing because it could kind of slither off the nails.
Ew.
Ew.
I think you need a lot of nails.
Lots of nails. And maybe a flamethrower.
It's worth noting there are a lot of tentacles in this movie.
Ew.
Yeah, ew.
Ew.
You can't really nail a ball of tentacles to a cross.
No, especially when bits fall off of it. Like,
And they scuttle off on spider legs.
I also can't emphasize enough how, like, you can't look up the IMDb and see pictures of the monsters and get it. Because you look at it, looks very cartoonish, but in the movie it's actually quite impressive.
Well, and like I was talking to Abbey, and I was like, these are like independently they're kind of campy, but like they're so good.
Yeah. Well,
it's like Ash versus Evil and the Evil Dead movies.
Yeah.
Like they're enjoyable.
They're not that campy.
They're enjoyable in their own right, though.
Yes.
The effects themselves are enough to watch this movie for.
Yeah.
But I can't believe it. I hadn't seen this all the way through, and as long as I had, like, it's so good. We can go around the horn. Matt, Quinn, what do you think?
I think it was a generally well done film, and something we haven't really talked about in the podcast so far is it has a really, really good soundtrack.
Oh, and Ennio Morricone did the score.
Yeah, it's very atmospheric, creepy as heck, and you can tell things are about to happen when the music kicks in.
Yeah, it did add to that Western feel I talked about being a Morricone soundtrack. Thank you, Matt. Other Matt.
I also had not seen this, and as I said, I mean, we're all going to say it. I think I really liked it.
Yeah.
It was much more clever than it had to be, I thought, in a lot of places. Like it actually brought up some good sci-fi things that didn't have to be in a generic horror movie. I don't know. I liked it. It was good. I'd watch it again.
Abby.
I probably hadn't seen this movie in 10 years, but it was one of the first horror movies that I watched that made me want to watch more horror movies. It's worth noting that there's not a single woman in this movie, unless you count
Abby, women
some
aren't
of
scientists.
Unless I'm hoping there were some Norwegian scientists that were bundled up on the black and white blurry videos. I'm just holding on to that. And there's just such a joy to this movie despite the material that it's an enjoyable watch. So even if you don't like horror movies, I would highly recommend watching it. It's definitely something you have to watch at least once in your lifetime.
Thank you. And Daniel.
It's awesome. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Go see. You've probably already seen this, but if you haven't, you're missing out. I just miss the times when people would take chances on genre films.
Totally. I mean, to your point, I think the women is the biggest weakness.
Yeah.
There were some shots that were just so well set up that I was marveling at the shot itself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Alien came out in '79. Like, we've had a woman protagonist in an Alien movie. Like, we there should have been someone. However, I will agree with everyone. This movie is damn near perfect. It's atmospheric horror. It's not too long. It leaves questions at the end, and it's scary at times, but also just well put together. It's hard to find a lot of flaws with it. It's a shame that it was kind of buried and he didn't do anything else with it because it was buried. It was almost a flop. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad it kind of stuck around because this came out the year after Escape from L.A., which was the first from Escape from New York, which was a huge success. So he got to do what he wanted, and people ignored this almost entirely.
We did mention that Snake Plissken is beautiful in this movie, right?
Oh man!
That mullet. I mean,
brunette locks.
Oh, raw.
That beard.
The baby blues.
Yes.
His hair is great, but it's just kind of like a teddy bear with blue eyes.
He also has a cowboy hat on,
like frequently. Yeah,
strung around him.
Not
the
like
whole
a cowboy
movie.
hat, like a huge.
It's a sombrero.
Floppy one. Yeah, it's great.
He never wears it, but
he does. He puts it on a couple times.
Does he?
And either that or it's on his back.
Yeah, it's always on his back. Just to add to the Western thing,
I mean, I was thinking specifically of the scenes when they kind of ride to the Norwegian, and it's like two of them on the back of the snow. It's like, it's like, whatever, it's a snowcat, and they're looking at all the dead bodies. They're like, something went through here. It feels very much like a Western. And you have the nervous doctor guys like, I don't know about this Snake Plissken. He's like, we got to figure out what happened here. Give me my whiskey. I mean, their only sponsor was J&B, and they went through a lot of J&B in this.
I think Wilford Brimley just showed up with a bunch of J&B, and they're like, all right, you bought it, so we're going to use
Wilford
this.
Brimley had Smirnoff.
That's right.
He did. He had a whole handle of it in his drawer.
I have an eye for liquor sponsorship, guys.
Well, Wilford Brimley just seems like a more classy guy than Smirnoff.
He does.
Was Smirnoff an American company at the time, or was it a Russian company?
It's always been an American company.
Okay, I was just kind of wondering if the Soviet Union bought a product placement for Smirnoff vodka.
Hello, we here to buy finance and movie. We want fat American diabetic to drink liquor.
Frankly, I'm shocked. I bet you Wilford Brimley's like, God damn it, I want to bring my own moonshine in. Only thing I drink, I make myself so the government can't tax it.
It's the same color. Maybe that's why Smirnoff was his and not J&B.
All right, that's it. We're cutting it off there. That's a perfect place to end. So, thanks for listening, guys. Your hint for next episode. It's a movie that I referenced already, and a modern movie is coming out to compete. So, it's coming out next week. So if you can figure out what movie comes out next week, which I've already alluded to in this movie, you figured it out. Tune in next week and every future week when we put another little piece of your past on trial. Thanks, guys.
Myopia Defend Your Childhood is a member of the ESO Network and produced by Dude Letter Podcasting. It is hosted by Nic Hoffmann. It is edited by Nic Hoffmann and Candace Burns. The theme song is Caroline by the Serenaders, and their music is available on Amazon. Please rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast. And tune in next week when we put another little piece of your past on trial. Thanks!